Hey, what's up? Liat Siegel and Shmuel Siegel here from Hadar Interiors, Inc. We're here live talking to you guys about Design and Profitability TV Season 2. Want to recap from yesterday?
Season 2, Episode 2.
Episode 2.
Yes, yesterday we covered a bit extensively, really giving you guys a bit of an overview and an idea of what we're going to be covering this season. One of the things we covered yesterday is basically the focus of yesterday's episode was the 1,000-foot view, right? This overview and a clear guide towards your project, right? If you're going to take on this new project, you want to make sure you know where you're going. So if you wanted to go ahead and check out yesterday's episode, if you haven't seen it yet, we will link it below later on in the comments section. It is a long episode, but it's totally worth watching, and I enjoyed it.
It was fun. I had a good time. I always love doing these lives. I'm sharing right now our live video. So if you guys enjoy the content or know somebody else that would enjoy the content, please share with them. Help get our message out there so that we can help more people be of more service and do what we do best, which is helping people through their renovation process and design planning.
Yes.
So let's dive into the content what we're going to be discussing today. There is a quick recap in the comment section or in the little snippet on top somewhere or below. If you're on YouTube, it's below. And we're going to be talking to you guys a little bit about what people usually do when they first start out, when they decide that they might need a renovation, and what they should do. So it's really the beginning of the beginning. Where to begin?
We're going to the prequel, really, right? We're starting in the first step, right? You wake up one day, you get into your kitchen or your living room, and you're like, it's time to redesign, right? I don't know how many of you have been there, or it's time to buy, a new place. We need to move. We've outgrown our place, and you're about to start this project. You're about to embark on a pretty serious, costly journey that you want to make sure you're really tackling in a very smart, strategic way, right? So you're facing this first day when you wake up, and it's like, hey everyone, you're facing this first day where you really, you're waking up and you're about to embark on this project. So what do you do, right? So where do people usually begin?
Deer in headlights.
Deer in headlights.
Deer in headlights. But first things first, they want to dream. They're like, they're experiencing this major contrast right now, and it's maybe it's an ugly kitchen or a kitchen that needs a major need of an update, and they go either to Pinterest or Instagram or Google, and they get some inspiration.
Right?
Yeah,
inspiration
that's number one.
Is really the first place to start, right?
Most people start, yeah.
And it might even start with inspiration before you even thought about the project, because right, maybe you get a certain design magazine, Architectural Digest, or perhaps or something like that,
Yep.
And you're looking around, or you saw an ad for something, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'd love to have that kind of space.
Right.
But how do you even start with these kind of projects? I mean, you look at these beautifully designed places, right? And it can be quite overwhelming, right? It could be, it looks so simple, right? They make it look beautiful and simple and pristine, especially if it's like a minimalistic kind of space. You're like, all it's got is a chair and a table. I got to be able to do that. Right, I got to be able to tackle that, and then you start. And what happens? You're starting with the Google searches, right? And you're starting with maybe a Pinterest search, and you find that it's a lot more complicated than it looks, right? So what happens next?
The next one is people will often do material searches. So either their furnishings, or if it's a kitchen, maybe cabinets. So that often happens when you're doing inspiration search, because on Pinterest or on Instagram, there's materials out there, products that people are selling, and it's just a rabbit hole from there.
Absolutely. As designers, right, we need to go and we look for inspiration. We might use Pinterest. We might use some of our magazines that we receive, from exclusive vendors, and we look there, and you could totally get lost in those places in the inspiration phase. And the hardest part is when you move out of the inspiration phase. You're like, all right, let's get this done.
Into reality.
Right? Into reality. And you're like,
pull the reins
back.
Back.
So the first thing you really should be doing, right? So what's the first step you should begin? So people start with inspiration, but what's the first step that they really should consider seriously once they want?
Once they realize that this is a reality, that they really like, this is something you're seriously considering, is to hire a professional that, whether it's a designer or a contractor or an architect, should be all of them, but but either way,
helpful hint.
Either way, it's really, really, really important that one of the first people on your team is going to create a project plan and going to have what's called dependencies, and, making sure that everybody is well coordinated and that, everything happens in the right particular order. We happen to have a project manager on our team that works with us to handle our project schedules and make sure that everybody's coordinated.
Which is also an important, right? If you're not sure where to begin, if you're not sure who you should start with, you can consult or even hire, if you can, a project manager.
Right.
And ideally, make sure that someone who knows and understands the process of the design and construction process, because absolutely, right? Obviously, you're going to start this project. You need to know it's going to cost you some money, right? It's not going to be free. And these professionals work hard to do what they do.
Right.
There's a reason why they charge the fees they charge. It's part of the process. You want to get good results. You want to make sure you're not going to solo it. If you're going to solo it, right, some of you are going to DIY and you're just going to tackle it on your own.
You're going to GC yourself.
If you're going to GC it yourself, you're going to get into a lot of complication, and you're going to realize that very quickly. Now, some people, that's just a reality. You have to face the fact that some people, you just don't have the available funds to pay for those projects. So what do you do in those situations, Leah?
Google,
and Google, right? There are actually a lot of really helpful resources online.
Right.
Make sure that you look at a legitimate, serious resource. Don't just go and just take anyone's word for it, because
you can binge our episodes.
You could binge our episodes, with a couple cups of coffee. You should, a couple nights, you should be able to finish all of them. But in a serious note, you really want to make sure that you're using a qualified, serious resource to show you the process, to make sure that you're not skipping any steps. Because really, one of the most common mistakes people do is they just get started and they don't know where to get started, and there's no plan behind it. And that's really why we're doing the season we're doing, because people just start. I need windows and I need, cabinets, and then I need a new door and maybe a new floor. And before you know it, they're starting in all these different directions, and they have no clue where they're going, what comes first, what comes next, And
that's totally normal, because,
it's not your profession. How would you know, right? And even if you yourself, have some familiarity, right, with the design process, then you would know how important it is to hire the right professionals as a part of your team to tackle it, right? If we wouldn't touch a project if we don't have the right team with us, because it's just too risky. We don't know.
And we're constantly building our team, constantly improving our systems. It's our full-time job to make sure we have efficiencies, more than the aesthetic aspect. I know that, most people start with inspiration phase, and, that's where they're like focused on. But more than anything, more than the aesthetics, more than how beautiful it comes out, if you want to make sure that you have results, there has to be efficiencies built into the project. There has to be project scheduling, a budget. That is where to begin first. And when you hire that first professional, whoever it is, you need to make sure that those are the first steps put into place, not the inspiration, not buying the products, and that way you will begin right the first time rather than having to go back and redo it.
And if cost is an issue, and cost is always an issue, there's no such thing as cost not being an issue, right? You want to make sure that the professional you're working with can give you a realistic estimate. You can check a lot of these estimates online and compare them to market normal, the norms, and you have to also recognize that some professionals are going to charge a little higher because you pay what you get for, you get what you pay for, rather.
Right. Don't do it backwards.
Yeah, don't do it backwards. Don't get what you pay. Don't pay what you get for, because that's not going to work. But
don't only search the yellow pages. Hire people who know their profession and who you can trust. Brian says, all designers are trained in design. Few can budget and schedule. That's so true.
Absolutely,
so
absolutely,
true.
and it's true in many areas. I mean, I've seen it with contractors, I've seen it with designers, I've seen it even with architects. Just because they are professionals doesn't mean that they're not professionals if they don't know how to, but it doesn't mean they know how to run a business. And running a business is a totally different story than being a professional. So making sure that the person you're working with has a strategy attached to what they're doing, that they can give you a real budget and a real expectation to how long it's going to take, because
and won't bend to your timeline if it's not realistic.
Yeah, right. You know, even though we all want things to be, we want someone to walk in with a magic wand and just like wave it around and everything is in Instagram perfect, right? We recognize, we need to recognize at least that reality is rarely that easy. Things like we said yesterday, the 5 Ps, right?
Yep.
What are the 5 Ps? Proper planning, right? Prevents poor performance, right? We want to make sure that you have a proper plan in place, because otherwise your performance will very, very likely be poor. And then whatever money you will be putting into it would just be,
doubled or tripled.
Or worse.
Or more.
Just totally lost, right? Sometimes it's just totally lost.
Yeah.
So I think we should wrap up for today, but I think really the first step, and I think that's where you need to begin, when you get that moment of inspiration and you want to go start your project. If you got inspired first, awesome, right? Then you recognize you need to do it. Then you want to make sure you get the right team on board. Make sure that you get a good idea of what it's going to cost you. Make sure you have those funds available and it's realistic, and your timeline is going to work for you and your family. Especially if you have to leave. It's a place that you're renovating. You're going to have to leave the space, that you have a plan in place. And if you haven't done the inspiration, you just realize that it's a necessity, then it's really, really awesome. And it's really important to go to the professional first, because a lot of times you could be wasting so much time trying to get inspired, especially if you don't know where to begin, and you can totally lose track of time and the project and getting a lot of unrealistic expectations. So it's really, really important to get the professionals on board. If you have a good designer on your team, they will really help you with the inspiration phase. An architect and a contractor can give you a really great idea of the feasibility and the possibilities. So you really want to make sure you get a solid team on board.
Yeah. And Brian says, one of the silliest things you can do is hire a competent professional and then proceed to tell them how to do their job. Hire someone you can trust and then trust them. It's absolutely true. And our project manager also talks about trust all the time. And he says, I don't want you to trust me. I want you to hold me accountable, and I'll hold you accountable. But Brian said it perfectly that, you need to know that when you're hiring somebody, you are in a sense trusting them at a certain level, and obviously you need to build up that relationship, and there needs to be a two-way trust, and there needs to be accountability on both ends.
We're not asking for blind faith.
Right. But you need to know that when you're hiring somebody, you don't micromanage them, because then there'll be extra communications back and forth, and you need to make sure that things are moving smoothly and trust them to do their job and
Absolutely.
And make sure that first and foremost that the dependencies and the accountability is in place with the project plan, and that's how you'll build the trust. So let's wrap it up for today. Thank you all for watching. I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Happy designing.
Bye for now.